So, dear students, in today's class, we will continue with our discussion on frequency modulation spectrum. Yesterday, we had derived the expression for frequency modulated signal. Okay. And we had also started some discussion on FM spectrum that we will discuss in detail today, and then we will move forward. So this is what we had discussed in yesterday's class. I told you that the main difference between AM and FM is the simplicity. Okay. So another difference between your AM and FM is that in case of FM, the bandwidth requirement is infinite, whereas in case of amplitude modulation, the bandwidth requirement is just the twice of our modulating signal. A bandwidth of modulating signal, that is your FM. Sorry, twice of FM. Okay, and in case of FM, our bandwidth requirement is infinite. Fine. And if you remember yesterday's class in FM, I told you that in the expression of frequency modulated signal, we have a sine of sine. So that's why we cannot simply use Fourier analysis, or just by looking at the mathematical expression, we cannot make out how many frequencies are there. So we will have to use Bessel function approach in order to understand the spectrum of FM. So Bessel function is actually second order differential equation, which is defined as a function of your modulation index, and brief solution of Bessel function has been shown to you on the right hand side of this slide. So you need not go into how that solution has been obtained. Just for your information, I have included here that this is how your Bessel function looks like. Okay, so after we expand our instantaneous value of FM signal using Bessel function, this is what do we get. Okay, so here you can observe that this instantaneous value of FM signal has been expanded in terms of Bessel function. So here Vc is our amplitude of the carrier, and then rest of the term has been represented in the form of your Bessel coefficient. So here your J0, J1, J2, J3, J4, J5, and so on, all these are your Bessel coefficients. Fine. And you should see that in case of your Bessel coefficient, when we have J0, we have the carrier frequency present. In case of J1, we have first order sideband present, that is omega c minus omega m and omega c plus omega m. Then in case of J2, our second order sideband is omega c minus twice of omega m and omega c plus twice of omega m. Similarly, we have omega c plus minus 3 omega m, omega c plus minus 4 omega m, omega c plus minus 5 omega m, means we are having your Bessel coefficient in terms of harmonics of you can say our modulating signal frequency, which is represented in the form of sideband with respect to the carrier. Okay, and since this expression goes on up to infinity, that means we have infinite Bessel coefficient. Okay, infinite Bessel coefficient means infinite sidebands. So if we roughly represent our FM spectrum, so this is say our carrier part, say Fc. Fine. Then we have here Fc plus FM. This is Fc minus FM. This is first order. Okay. Then we may say that, okay, this is Fc plus 2 FM, then Fc minus 2 FM. Then Fc plus 3 FM, then Fc minus 3 FM. Then Fc plus 4 FM, then Fc minus 4 FM. And it goes on like this on both sides. Okay. So this is how we represent these Bessel coefficient. So here you may notice on the slide that I am continuously decreasing the amplitudes. So this may not exactly follow in the same fashion. I will clarify this point in the next slide also, but you should keep in mind that your various sidebands have varying amplitudes. Okay, and you have infinite number of sidebands. So after this deliberation, now we need to notice certain observations with respect to our FM spectrum. Fine. So I'll make you understand all these observations one by one, which are very, very important with regard to FM spectrum. So let us talk about the first observation. The first observation, as I talked about, that in case of amplitude modulation, we have only 3 frequencies. One is the carrier and another is the two sidebands. Whereas in case of frequency modulation, we have infinite number of sidebands. I just explained to you. Okay. And along with sidebands, we also have carrier component present. So if you look at J naught carefully, then you can observe the carrier component directly. Okay. And all these sidebands, they are separated from the carrier by an amount of FM, 2FM, 3FM. I said that we have harmonics of your modulating signal frequencies, which has been added or subtracted from your carrier frequency. So this is one and the same thing. Okay. So we have a recurrence frequency of FM. That means that your consecutive Bessel coefficients, they are having a difference of FM. Fine. So I hope all of you have been able to understand this point very, very clear. So now let us move forward to our next observations related to FM spectrum. So now second observation. So as I told you that your J coefficient means your Bessel coefficients, they tell us about the amplitude of your various sideband components. Okay. So as the order of Bessel coefficient increases, okay. So like as you move from J0 to J1, J2, J3, J4, and so on, these Bessel coefficient decrease. Okay. But not in any simple manner. Okay. So if you again look at this portion, I showed that various amplitudes of the sideband, it is decreasing, but this decrease is not, you can say, uniform, or this decrease is not linear. So it may vary, but one thing is for very sure, that there is a decrease in the amplitude. So here in this slide, if you look at the top right corner, there is a figure which shows the values of these various Bessel coefficients. So if you see your J0, this is your first Bessel coefficient, which is dedicated to the carrier part. So the value of this Bessel coefficient is varying sinusoidally. Okay. Fine. And the peak of various sinusoids, this is decreasing. Say here the J0 was this one, started from 1, and then it is decreasing like this. Okay. Similarly, if you notice J1, so the value of J1 is moving like this. Okay. And the peak of J1, it is also decreasing. Okay. So the trend is not that, simple, but one thing is very sure, that all these sinusoids corresponding to different Bessel coefficient, these are decreasing. Okay. But according to the nature, as it has been described in the waveform or in the figure here. Fine. So what does it mean? That your J coefficients, they decrease as the value of n increases, not in simple manner. Okay. And this value fluctuates on either side of 0. This is another important one. So this is your 0 line. Okay. If you look at J0, the value of J0 is fluctuating on either side. Fine. So that is another point. And the next point, which is you need to understand or observe in point number 2, is that your modulation index determines how many sideband components have significant amplitude. Okay, so this is an important point to notice. I told you that we have infinite number of sidebands present. Okay, and these Bessel coefficients are functions of your modulation index. Fine. So if the value of modulation index is large, okay, then the amplitudes of the significant sidebands, that will also be large. Or in other words, I should say that the number of sidebands with significant amplitude, they will be more. Okay, so if modulation index is having large values, then number of sideband components will also have large amplitude. That means your modulation index decides that how many sideband components will be significant. Okay, so insignificant sideband means those will be having very small amplitude, they can be ignored or they can be neglected. Okay, so this is our observation number 2. Now let us move to observation number 3. Okay, so this also I have told you in the previous slide that the sidebands that we have, those sidebands are equal distances, at equal distances from your carrier frequencies. Okay, and the individual sidebands corresponding to a given Bessel coefficient, say J1. For J1, we have omega c plus omega m and omega c minus omega m. So for these two, the amplitude is same. Okay, on either side of the carrier frequency, Fc minus Fm and Fc plus Fm, they have same amplitude, but the adjacent sidebands, these are not having the same amplitude. Fine. So this is another important point that you need to notice. And your Bessel coefficient may have negative values occasionally. Okay, which means that there is a phase change of 180 degrees. Fine. Next, another important observation is that as the modulation index increases, okay, so in fact this point is in some way related to this underlined point in your point number 2, that like if modulation index value is high, then the number of significant sidebands, that is also large. Fine. So observation number 4 is related to that. So here, if we see that as the modulation index increases, okay, then also the value of J coefficient. Fine. Just a minute. So students, if we look at point number 4, fine. So as MF increases, then the value of J coefficient, that also increases. And if you remember the definition of modulation index, fine. There for modulation index, we had told that your modulation index is equal to delta upon Fm. Okay, so from here we can see that your modulation index is inversely proportional to modulating signal frequency. Okay, so that means your modulation index value will increase when your modulating signal frequency will decrease. Okay, so that means that if you lower modulating signal frequency, indirectly that leads to increasing value of modulation index. Then what will happen? The amplitude, relative amplitude of distant sidebands, that increases. Fine. Provided we are assuming that this deviation part, this is constant. Okay. So that is your observation number 4. Fine. Now next observation. So in this observation, we have to notice one point, that it is written that increased depth of modulation increases the sideband power. Okay, so what does it mean? That what is the meaning of increased depth of modulation? Means the increased value of modulation index. Okay, so when we increase the value of modulation index, that means more number of sidebands, they will be included. More number of sidebands included means the sideband power will be more. Okay, obviously if sideband power is more, the total transmitted power will also be more. Okay, so but you have to remember one thing, that we have already talked about that in case of frequency modulated signal, the amplitude of carrier is constant. Okay, the amplitude of carrier is constant, only the frequency is changing. Fine. So it means that when the modulation index increases, your more number of sidebands, they become significant. Okay. So in case of FM, your total transmitted power always remains constant. Fine. I think I spelled your AM and FM. In fact, first let me repeat this thing, that in amplitude modulation, if your depth of modulation increases, then your sideband power increases and therefore the total transmitted power. Okay. And we all know that in amplitude modulation, your sideband power is dependent on the power of your modulating signal or the amplitude of modulating signal. Fine. Whereas in case of FM, since our carrier amplitude is fixed, okay, so it means the total power has to be fixed. Okay, then what will happen if we increase the modulation index in case of FM? So if we increase the value of modulation index, then instead of increasing the power, the required bandwidth will increase. Okay, so please read this point carefully, that in FM, the total transmitted power always remains constant, total transmitted power. Okay, but with increased depth of modulation, means when we increase the value of modulation index, fine, then the required bandwidth will increase. Okay, so this is one very, very important point that you need to understand. And this is also a difference between AM and FM, that how does your transmitted power changes with increase in the depth of modulation in case of AM and in case of FM. So I hope all of you have been able to understand this. Next. So there are two more observations related to FM spectrum. And in fact, these two observations may be surprising for you also. Okay, so we have learned from our initial discussion on frequency modulation that in case of FM, the amplitude of carrier remains constant. And I'm saying just now also that in FM signal, the carrier signal amplitude is always constant, only the frequency is changing. Whereas in the observation, next observation, what I'm pointing out is that in case of FM, the amplitude of carrier component does not remain constant. So I'm contradicting my statement that I have just told you, or I told you when I explained the concept of FM. So we need to understand what does it actually mean. So when I say that in case of FM, amplitude of carrier remains constant, that means the overall amplitude of FM is constant, not the individual carrier component amplitude. Let me go back to previous slide. So you again look at this slide carefully. Now, what is this term? J naught MF sine omega CT. So here, the sine omega CT is our carrier part, and J naught is the Bessel coefficient corresponding to the carrier part. And these are the various Bessel coefficients. Fine. So your carrier part is having its amplitude as J naught MF. And if you look at the figure in the next slide, so what is happening here? See, how does J naught vary? So your J naught is varying like this. J naught is varying like this. Fine. Means the amplitude of the carrier component or the amplitude of the Bessel coefficient denoting carrier part is changing. Okay. But if you consider the overall amplitude of all the Bessel coefficient, if I take together all these things, in that case, your overall amplitude will be constant. So when we say that amplitude of carrier is constant in case of FM, That means it is the overall amplitude of FM wave, not the individual part. So I know it may create a bit confusion in the mind of you people, but if you try to correlate your concept with the mathematical equation of Bessel function, you will be able to understand this one. Okay, so please reread this thing, that the overall amplitude of FM wave is constant, not the amplitude of individual carrier component, which is your J naught coefficient. Fine. Next, in continuation with this observation number 7, one more surprising thing you may come across, that your carrier component of the FM wave may disappear completely. Means your carrier amplitude becomes 0, and the value at which carrier component becomes 0, that is known as eigenvalues. Okay, so see, this is again related to your Bessel coefficient. So J naught MF is the Bessel coefficient, which is a function of modulation index, and this J naught MF is varying on both sides of your 0. So how your J naught MF is varying? Like this. Okay, and your J naught MF has value 0 for certain value of MF. Okay, so at those values for which those values of MF for a particular modulation index value, this J naught becomes 0. Okay, so those values are called eigenvalues. Fine. I hope all of you have been able to understand all these observations related to FM spectrum. So students, after understanding these observations, we may conclude through some points that in case of frequency modulated signal, our bandwidth is infinite, and we say that bandwidth as theoretical bandwidth. Okay, so obviously we cannot have infinite bandwidth available for transmission of FM signal. So what do we do practically? So practically what we do, we never use infinite bandwidth. We only consider those side bands up to which we have significant amplitude present. Okay, and rest of the side bands, they are discarded or they are ignored. So there is one practical bandwidth which is being used for frequency modulated signal. Okay, and that practical bandwidth is being calculated with the help of a rule that is known as Carson's rule. Fine, and according to this Carson's rule, this bandwidth of frequency modulated signal, it is twice the sum of the deviation and the highest modulating frequency. Okay, so your Carson's rule gives us bandwidth or defines bandwidth like this, that this bandwidth is equal to twice of delta plus FM. Okay, so your delta is what? It is the deviation. Okay, and your FM is what? Your modulating signal frequency. Fine. So this is how we define Carson's rule, which gives us practical bandwidth of your frequency modulated signal. Obviously, this practical bandwidth is an approximation. Fine, but it fairly describes the bandwidth required for FM signal transmission. Okay. Next important point that I want to make here is related to the last 2 points on this slide, and these 2 points are related to the figure which I'm showing you on this slide, the left hand side. See students, here I want to make 2 things, or I want to make you understand 2 points. How do we define modulation index? The modulation index MF is equal to delta, that is your frequency deviation, upon modulating signal frequency FM. Fine. Now, since this is a mathematical equation where your MF will, or MF can be increased in 2 ways. How? By keeping delta as constant. This is one way. keeping delta as constant, and by decreasing FM. This is one way to increase MF. Another way is to keep FM constant. Okay, we keep the denominator part constant. Okay, and we increase the numerator part. We increase this numerator. So both ways we can increase MF mathematically, but physically or conceptually, in case of frequency modulation, it will mean two different things. Okay, so see, your figure is having two observations. One is labeled as A and another is your labeled as B. Okay, so first look carefully at the A part. So here what is happening, we have constant modulating signal frequency, but delta is increasing. Okay, means this one for increasing value of modulation index. So what is happening here, as we move downwards, first we have modulation index as 0.5, then 1, then 2.5, then 4. Okay, means we are increasing deviation, and as a result your modulation index is increasing. Fine, and for a constant modulating signal frequency. So what does it mean? That if we increase the modulation index value by increasing deviation, by increasing frequency deviation, in that case the number of sidebands will increase. Okay, see, when we have MF equal to 4, there are so many sidebands, and in fact the number of significant sidebands, they are more. For MF equal to 2.5, the number of sidebands are less. Then at 1 they are further less, and at 0.5 they are further less. So means if we increase the value of deviation by keeping FM constant, in that case your bandwidth increases. Okay, so we can say that as the modulation depth increases, so does the bandwidth. And how are we increasing modulation depth? By increasing deviation and by keeping FM constant. Okay, now we can think of increasing your modulation depth by keeping constant deviation, and your if you again go from upwards to downwards. Okay, or if you want to increase the modulation depth or modulation index value by keeping delta constant and by decreasing FM. Fine, so what is happening? See, how much is the bandwidth when we have modulation index 0.5? Okay, this much is the bandwidth, this much. As we move upwards, your modulation index is value is increasing. And how it is increasing? By decreasing FM and by keeping constant delta. But it is not increasing the bandwidth. It is only increasing the sidebands in between. The total bandwidth is same for the case of modulation index value 6 as well as modulation index value 0.5. Okay, so I hope all of you have understood the difference in increasing the value of modulation index in two ways. Fine. So as I have shown in the slide also, that reduction in modulation frequency. Okay, what we are doing, we are reducing modulating signal frequency, means we are keeping the deviation constant. Okay, it means we are increasing the modulation index value. Okay, then what is happening? The number of sidebands, they are increasing, but it is not increasing the bandwidth. Whereas in the first case, where we were increasing the value of modulation index by increasing delta and keeping FM constant, there your bandwidth was also increased. So this was very, very important point that you need to understand if you want to understand the spectrum of frequency modulation. I hope all of you have understood this thing. Fine. So students, after discussing the FM spectrum, now let us move forward. So with this, we have completed our discussion on the concept part of frequency modulation. Okay, we have seen the concept of frequency modulation, the definition of frequency modulation. We have derived the mathematical expression of frequency modulation. We have talked about the modulation index of FM. We have talked about the spectrum of FM. We have also tried to understand phase modulation. Then we have also talked about the difference between phase modulation and your frequency modulation. So one or two small concepts are also, left behind, but those will be covered as we progresses further into our discussion on frequency modulation. Okay, so next important part that we need to understand now is the generation of frequency modulation. Okay, so first, we need to understand what do we require for generating FM signal. Fine. So what actually is there in FM? FM means your frequency modulation. Means we are changing the frequency of the carrier in accordance with the instantaneous value of the modulating signal. What does it mean? That your carrier frequency, okay, say FC, it has to be changed. So means your change in carrier frequency, it has to be proportional to your instantaneous value of the modulating signal. This is the main crux behind your generation of frequency modulation. Okay, so obviously carrier frequency changes in accordance with your modulating signal, and we get the FM. So that means we require voltage variable output frequency. Means we need to output such frequency that can be varied according to the voltage, and that voltage of ours is your modulating voltage, and this output frequency is nothing but the frequency of the, or the changing frequency of the carrier. Okay, so now next thing is how to get this voltage variable output frequency. So students, we all have studied LC oscillator in our previous classes. We know what is LC oscillator. I have shown you in the figure also that we have an inductor and capacitor either in series or in parallel, and it is used for generating sinusoidal signal, or LC filter also you may have studied that your LC filter, it allows certain frequencies to pass through, or it blocks certain set of frequencies. Okay, so that also consists of your inductor and capacitor. Fine. So we all know that your LC oscillator circuit, it generates frequency F, which is defined as 1/2 pi under root LC. So depending on the value of inductor and capacitor, we generate a given frequency. Fine. I hope all of you remember this thing, that your F is equal to 1/2 pi under root LC. And all of you have studied the concept of resonance. Okay, so whenever there is a resonance, obviously the peak is obtained. And if you remember, your resonance curve looks like this. Okay, at the center there is a peak, so where we have the highest frequency present, and then your peak decreases on the either side of this resonance point. Okay, so this F equal to 1/2 pi under root LC, this is the center frequency. Is that point clear? Now, here we are able to observe that your frequency that LC oscillator generates, that depends on the value of inductor and the value of the capacitor. Okay, so if you make this inductor or capacitor variable, then obviously your frequency also becomes variable. Fine. So if you change the value of inductor, or if you change the value of capacitor, then the value of F changes. Okay, and we all know that in the circuit we have three main components. One is R, another is L, and third is C. Okay, resistance we all know, this is resistance, inductance, and your capacitance. And the combination of resistance and inductance, or resistance or capacitor, we call that as reactance. Okay, so what we want this L or C to be varied. Okay, and resistance is integral part of any circuit. Even if you don't say that there is no resistance, resistance will always be there. So it means reactance is an integral part of that circuit. So as I told you that we want voltage variable output frequency. So in order to get voltage variable output frequency, we need voltage variable reactance. Okay, voltage variable reactance. And why am I saying that voltage variable reactance? See, you concentrate on this equation, F equal to 1 by 2 pi under root LC. If you change capacitance, then F will vary. Okay, changing capacitance means changing the reactance, or changing inductance means changing the reactance of the circuit. Okay, and how do we want to change this L or C? We want some method with the help of which we can change either L or C through voltage. Means if we change voltage, then we want that either C or L should change, and if L or C changes, then F changes. I hope all of you have been able to understand that. So what we want, we have some voltage. This voltage, you know, change in the voltage helps to change in, say, capacitance, and change in capacitance leads to change in frequency. So what is happening? Your voltage variable capacitance is giving us voltage variable frequency. Okay, I hope all of you have been able to understand that. So this is the main concept for generation of frequency modulation, that we want voltage variable reactance. Fine. So then if I want to show it more clearly, you concentrate on this figure. So here what is happening, we have taken a fixed L, fixed C. This fixed L and fixed C will generate a fixed frequency, that is a carrier frequency. Then to this fixed LC circuit, we also call LC circuit as tank circuit. Okay, so you may be wondering that what is this tank? So this LC circuit is LC oscillator circuit is tank circuit. So now what we do, we connect in parallel with this C another capacitor which is voltage variable. Okay, and we know that the equivalent capacitance of this fixed capacitor and variable capacitor will be some capacitance which is voltage variable. Since these capacitors are in parallel, so total capacitance will be, say, some C dash is equal to C plus your voltage variable capacitance C. So indirectly you can say that C dash is voltage variable. Fine. So this variable capacitor will change its capacitance according to voltage, because of which the entire capacitance will change according to voltage, because of which the entire combination of L and C will change. So this becomes a voltage variable. As a result, this frequency becomes voltage variable. Is that point clear? So this is how your voltage variable reactance provides us the generation of voltage variable frequency. And one very simple, circuit or component is there that gives us voltage variable capacitance. All of us have studied varactor diode. Varactor diode means variable capacitor diode. Diode which has variable capacitance. And you know that by changing the bias across the diode, okay, by changing the reverse bias across the diode, you can vary the capacitance of your varactor diode. So this, variable capacitor component can be made by using either varactor diode. It can also be made by using field effect transistor. It can also be made using BJT, bipolar junction transistor. Okay, so this variable capacitor part can be, generated with the help of either vector diode or FET or BJT. Very, very simple. Okay, so that's why your generation of frequency modulation, it is divided into two types of methods. One is known as direct method and another is indirect method. Your direct method is what I explained to you. In the direct method, what do? That we connect voltage variable reactance across tank circuit of an oscillator. So here my LC is the tank circuit, tank oscillator. I have connected a voltage variable reactance across this tank circuit, and as a result I get voltage variable reactance and I get the FM generated through direct method. I hope all of you have been able to understand the concept of direct. And there is another category of method for generating FM signal, and that category is indirect. Okay, and in indirect method, we can generate frequency modulated signal through phase modulated signal. So we generate FM through PM. So as we move to indirect method in the later classes, you will be able to understand how do we generate frequency modulated signal through phase modulated signal. This is also one of the regions or one of the point that further emphasizes that your FM and PM are related. So I hope all of you have been able to understand the concept of generation of FM. Fine. So students, after discussing the concept of direct method, now let us move forward. So this is our direct method of generating FM signal. Okay, and here we also call this circuit as basic reactance modulator. Keep this thing in your mind that we are using basic reactance modulator as a direct method for generating FM signal. Okay. Another thing is we are studying the circuit of basic reactance modulator. Means on the left hand side, if you see the circuit, the above figure, it is your basic reactance modulator, and this reactance modulator will be connected with your tank oscillator circuit. Fine. So this above circuit is only a part of the total circuit. We are simply discussing how to have variable reactance, this part only. This thing is another portion which will be connected to your reactance modulator. So that you need to understand here, that we are simply talking about the reactance modulator part. So this reactance modulator will then be connected to your tank oscillator circuit. I hope all of you have been able to understand this. Okay, and then next, all of you have read about the working of your BJT, that is your bipolar junction transistor, then field effect transistor. So I need not go into much detail of that. Okay, so you all know that in case of your FET, we have three terminals in FET. One is your drain, okay, and then we have source, and the third terminal is gate. So your D is drain, then G is your gate, and S is your source. Fine. And we also know that how does your FET work. Okay, so obviously we have to supply some bias on the gate. Okay, and then your current will flow from your source to drain or the vice versa. And depending on the gate bias, okay, your current flowing through your drain to source or source to drain, that will vary. Okay, another important thing is students, whether it is your BJT or your FET or diode, they have inbuilt capacitance. Okay, and that capacitance is voltage variable. So we are trying to simply take advantage of that thing only, that whether it is your diode, whether it is your FET or your transistor, all have inbuilt invariable capacitance. which you can change with the help of bias, gate bias, or you can biasing on other terminals which are applicable to a particular semiconductor device. Okay, so if we vary the capacitance, that inbuilt capacitance, depending on your bias, we say that our reactance is proportional to that voltage. Fine. So if we go for some more specific terms, some involved mathematical analysis is there. So let us have a look at that, so that we can correlate our mathematics with the concepts which are developed. Okay. So here, one term is transconductance. I hope all of you know this transconductance. Okay. So your transconductance of this reactance modulator, okay, so this varies, that depends on your gate bias, and your reactance of this reactance modulator is proportional to this transconductance. Okay, so in a way your reactance become proportional to your gate bias and the variation in the gate bias. So what we try to prove here, that this AA terminal, this AA terminal, it will be connected to the input of this tank oscillator. Okay, and we want to prove here, what we are trying to do, we want to find out the impedance of this circuit, okay, that is Z. We want to find out that, and we want to prove that this Z is voltage variable reactance. Okay, either in the form of capacitance or in the form of inductance, but primarily we will take the capacitance part, because that is comparatively easier to analyze, and our job will be done whether the capacitance varies or the inductance varies. So variation in inductance is much difficult to analyze, one thing. Another thing is capacitive effect is much more prominent in case of your FETs and BJTs as compared to inductive effect. So that's why you will find the variation in the capacitance. So we want to prove that this equivalent impedance which will appear across this A terminal, that depends on the capacitance, and that capacitance is obviously proportional to transconductance, which depends on gate voltage or gate bias. So indirectly our reactance becomes voltage variable through transconductance. That's it. So otherwise the rest of the mathematical expressions are very, very simple. They look like that they are difficult, but these are very, very simple. So how, let us see that. See, what we are doing here, we are assuming that some voltage V has been applied across AA terminal. Okay, so it is written also that in order to determine Z, a voltage V is applied to the terminal AA, okay, where we want to measure the impedance. Okay, so once we apply voltage V, then obviously some current will flow, and we want to find out this value of current. So this current is calculated. Okay, so we have applied V, then we calculate the current that is resulting due to that, and if you divide your voltage and current, you get impedance. So impedance Z is equal to nothing but V by I. Okay, so this is how we will proceed here. See, we want to find out Z, and Z can be obtained by dividing voltage and current. This V is the applied voltage and I is the resulting current. Fine. Now, as per the concept of your field effect transistor, your current is defined like this. I is the current, okay, this current which flows from your source to drain. Fine. And GM is called the transconductance, and VG is the gate voltage. Okay, so this is the governing equation of any FET. Okay, so I is the current, G is the voltage, VG is the voltage that you apply across gate, and GM is the transconductance. So Okay, so dimensionally, this transconductance is reverse of your resistance. Okay, so if you look at Ohm's law is equal to I is equal to V by R. Whereas instead of taking I equal to V by R, what we are taking I equal to V into G. And this G is 1 by R. So this is conductance, and we call that conductance for this governing equation of FET as transconductance. So this is what we have seen here, I equal to Gm Vg. Fine. Okay, so this is one thing. Now our aim is to find out this value of I. Okay, so before we do that, we'll have to look for some more expression. That is, we need to find out the value of Vg. That is how much voltage is present across the gate. So what is happening, students? See, this is the V is the voltage, and this branch and this branch, they are in parallel. Okay, so this V voltage is appearing across this R and C in series. Fine. So if you apply voltage divider rule, then Vg is the voltage across R. Okay, so the total voltage, that is V, it is divided across R and C. Fine. So it can be written like this: voltage across R, and then R minus JXC. This minus JXC is the capacitive reactance. So this is nothing but the voltage divider rule. So this is what we have shown here, that your gate voltage Vg equal to RV upon R minus JXC. Okay, and we substitute this value of Vg in this governing equation of FET, and we get I is equal to GMRV upon R minus JXC. Very, very simple. Okay, and we have got the value of I. Now we need to find out the value of Z. Z is equal to V by I. We substitute the value of I from above. Okay, and if you solve this, your V and V will be cancelled, and this becomes R minus JXC upon GM into R. 1 by GM is taken common outside, and we are left with 1 minus JXC upon R. So this is what we have as an impedance when we look in for this impedance inside this AA terminal. Okay, now see, we need to notice something more. This impedance Z, what we want this impedance to be fully voltage variable. We want voltage variable reactance. Okay, so obviously we need certain assumptions so that whatsoever additional components are present in this expression, those additional components can be ignored. Okay, or can be neglected. Fine. So here there is one approximation that we will have to assume so that we get voltage variable reactance, and that is that we know what is XC. XC is nothing but omega C, which is defined for this capacitance. So this XC, if we assume, we'll have to take XC very, very greater than R. The value of capacitor is to be taken in such a way that your XC becomes very, very greater than R. So if your XC is greater than R, then this one can be neglected. And what do we get? We get Z is equal to minus JXC upon GM into R. I hope all of you have been able to understand this. And this minus J, you all know that this is just because of mathematical property of your iota or complex number. This thing is coming, and due to capacitor part. Okay, so see, this is our resultant impedance when we look into this AA terminal, and we take the value of XC very, very greater than R. So if you look at this thing carefully, see, what is GM? GM is transconductance, which is reverse of resistance. What is R? R is resistance. So GM into R means this is your dimensionless. So what does it mean? That your Z is proportional to XC. And what is XC? XC is capacitive reactance. So means the total impedance looking into this terminal from AA is capacitive reactance. Okay, so means that this impedance is clearly a capacitive reactance. Okay, so we can represent this thing. So you can write this as minus J, okay, and some equivalent reactance. So we can write it like this. And what is X equivalent? Your X equivalent is nothing but XC upon GM into R, XC. Okay, and now you see this equivalent reactance is capacitive, net capacitive. One thing is there, and another thing is this depends on GM. GM is what? Transconductance. And what is transconductance of FET? That transconductance is voltage variable. So this GM part is voltage variable, XC is capacitive. So it means this reactance is directly, voltage variable reactance. Fine. And I told you what is XC. XC is nothing but it is your omega C. Okay, sorry, 1 by omega C, not omega C. Okay, and omega is 2 pi F. So that's why instead of XC, you have got 1 by 2 pi F and then C. So this is XC and GMR is already there. Okay, so we again represent your GM into R into C. This part 2 pi F we already know, this is omega part, and we can write equivalent capacitance is equal to GM into RC. So your equivalent capacitance of this voltage variable reactance is GM into RC. This equivalent capacitance is dependent on GM, which again depends on the variable voltage or the gate voltage, and R and C are fixed. So I hope all of you have been able to understand the theory of reactance model. Fine. So dear students, from this slide, we conclude that our equivalent capacitance is equal to GM times RC. So now next. So these points in a way I have already explained. Just for you can say further reinforcement, I can again read out for you. So we have obtained our equivalent reactance is equal to GMRC, or equivalent capacitance is equal to GMRC. Fine, and it depends on device transconductance, which is your voltage variable. So it means this can be varied with bias voltage. So this your equivalent reactance or capacitance is voltage variable. Fine, and we can vary this capacitance depending on our input signal. So one thing you have to notice here, that one thing is we have fixed capacitance, that is C, that is a fixed capacitance, and another is variable capacitance, which is part of your FET. Okay, so your original capacitance or fixed capacitance can be adjusted to any value that will give us the carrier component part, and the variation part will be provided to us by the FET. Fine. And regarding dimension, I have already talked about this GM into R into C. So GM is transconductance, R is resistance. That gives us, that is dimensionless. Okay, cancel each other, and we are left with only C part. C is nothing but your capacitance, that is your farad, and it means dimensionally or unit wise also our expression is correct. Fine. And one assumption that we have already assumed that your gate to drain impedance. What was gate to drain impedance? What we assumed that your XC has to be very, very greater than R. Okay, so this is your drain part, this is your gate part. So gate to drain impedance means this portion is having impedance very high as compared to your gate to source part, means this part. So this I have already stated to you. So I hope all of you have understood. Then next. So this is the final expression. Again, some more mathematical jargons that will help you in defining more things. So this we have already defined, that Z is equal to, or equivalent impedance is equal to your capacitive reactance, that is minus JXC upon GMR. Okay, this is what we have defined in the previous slide clearly. Okay, and I told you that your capacitance XC reactance gives us 1 by omega C, and since this XC is very greater than R, we have assumed that this one. So obviously your XC will be some multiple of R. So we can say that XC is equal to N into R. Okay, so if we say XC is equal to N into R, N times R, that means XC is greater than R. Okay, so then from these two, what do we get? Your capacitance value has to be 1 by 2 pi FNR. Okay, so if you remove this greater than inequality, you can represent it by NR. Fine. So then we know your equivalent capacitance is GM times RC. The value of C you can substitute from above equation. Your R and R will be cancelled, and you get your equivalent capacitance as GM upon 2 pi Fn. So GM is your transconductance, F is the frequency, and N is the number of times your capacitive reactance is higher than your resistance in the cell. Okay, so this is all about your basic reactance modulator, with the help of which we generate voltage variable reactance through transconductance, and we integrate this voltage variable reactance with our tank circuit, which gives us voltage variable frequency, and which is nothing but your frequency modulated signal. So I hope all of you have understood this. Okay, so students, thank you very much. This is all about today's class. Thank you.